Disneyland Resort and Walt Disney World Resort couldn't be more different from one another. Besides being located on completely different sides of the country, Disneyland being in Southern California and Disney World located in Central Florida, visiting Disney World is not the same as visiting Disneyland. If you are a Disneyland person, then you'll definitely want to be aware of these differences before you visit Disney World. Disneyland Resort only has 2 theme parks, the original Disneyland Park and California Adventure. Disney World, on the other hand, has 4 parks, Magic Kingdom, Epcot, Hollywood Studios, and Animal Kingdom. You may have heard the term Disney Bubble being used to describe Disney World. It's called this because it truly is its own bubble, separate from the rest of the world. Disney World is huge. It sits on approximately 30,000 acres, making it roughly the same size as the city of San Francisco. All of the Disneyland Resort only occupies 500 acres. That is a staggering difference. The parks themselves are also much bigger and more spread out in Disney World than the 2 parks found in Disneyland. To give you an idea of just how big the parks in Disney World are, let's compare them to just Disneyland Park. You could fit 1 2/3 of a Disneyland park into Magic Kingdom. You could fit 3.5 Disneyland parks into Epcot, and you could fit the entire Disneyland Resort, including the 3 on-site resorts, full theme parks, and Downtown Disney, all within just Animal Kingdom. Disneyland is much more compact than Disney World. This leads into the next topic of park hopping. Park hopping is really easy in Disneyland. Disneyland and California Adventure are just a few hundred steps apart from one another, and as we just talked about, the footprints of each of those parks are considerably smaller than the parks in Disney World. Park hopping in Disney World is not very easy. It will take about an hour to get from one park to another. And you might be thinking to yourself, Molly, how is that even possible? Well, by the time you get out of that gigantic park you're already in, get over to Disney Transportation, and then finally arrive at your next park, it will be about an hour later. Park hopping in Disney World eats up a lot of time just trying to get from one park to another. And it's for this reason that I don't usually recommend park hopping in Disney World unless it's absolutely necessary or you're a seasoned pro. If this is your first time going to Disney World, then sticking to just one park a day will have plenty to keep you busy. Unlike Disneyland, you won't be able to squeeze all the parks in Disney World into 1 or 2 days. It's just not possible. Disneyland can easily be a quick trip. You can easily accomplish everything in both parks in Disneyland in 2 days, and 3 if you really wanted to take your time. Disney World, on the other hand, requires a longer trip and more time. There's just so much to do. Not only are there the 4 theme parks, but there is so much other stuff to do in the Disney bubble outside of the parks. Plus, I am a huge believer in resort days when visiting Disney World. A resort day is a day that you don't visit any of the parks, and instead, you just take the time to enjoy some activities, like taking advantage of the resort pool, doing some resort hopping, or maybe some shopping, and you're just taking a day or 2 to relax. Disney World is a marathon, not a sprint, and you are going to want some downtime planned into your trip. There's so much to do in Disney World and so little time. Most people don't have an unlimited amount of time and money to spend at Disney World, so it is imperative that you have a plan. Trying to wing it in Disney World is just asking to be overwhelmed, confused, and it's a surefire way to waste your precious park time. It's simply too big with too many options. And also, did I mention how spread out everything is? You don't want to add extra steps to your day in Disney World because you didn't plan out your day. In Disneyland, it's a little easier to bounce around the park to avoid long lines, but not so much in Disney World. Disney World requires a lot of planning to make sure you are maximizing your time and money and actually spending your Disney vacation having fun. Because there is so much more to plan in Disney World than in Disneyland, I came up with a solution. I've compiled everything you need to know to expertly plan your Disney World park days, all in one easy-to-read guide. And I'll put that link down in the description below for you. And for those of you who hate planning, I've also got you covered. I offer personal concierge planning services so that you can leave the planning to an expert and just go have fun in Disney World. The weather is a huge difference between Disneyland and Disney World. Southern California and Central Florida have very different climates. It can get toasty in Southern California during the peak of summer, but it's still definitely manageable, especially with that nice ocean breeze comes inland when the sun goes down. Disneyland offers almost perfect weather all year long. That is not so much the case in Florida. It gets extremely hot in Florida during the summer months, plus there is a ridiculous amount of humidity. If you are not used to humidity, then it can do a number on you. From about mid-May through mid-October, Disney World feels like you are walking around in a sauna. On top of the high heat and humidity, it rains a lot more in Florida than in Southern California. So you most likely are going to encounter a rain shower or two during your Disney World trip. So again, just another tidbit you'll want to plan for. The transportation for most people in Disneyland is their own feet. Disneyland does have a monorail, but it only runs from the Disneyland Hotel to Disneyland Park. And not a lot of people use the monorail while in Disneyland because the majority of guests are not staying at the Disneyland Hotel. In Disney World, Disney Transportation is its own separate entity. Disney World is huge, and guests need to be able to move around easily. So this is done with Disney's transportation network. This network is made up of buses, boats, the Skyliner, and multiple monorails to help you get to and from the parks as well as the on-site resorts. Disney transportation is a super important part of Disney World that Disneyland people just aren't used to having to think about. It also gives you the freedom of not needing a car if you're staying within the Disney bubble. Disneyland Resort only has 3 on-site resorts: the Disneyland Hotel, the Grand Californian, and Pixar Place. Disney World, on the other hand, has over 20 on-site resorts to choose from, and these resorts are sight to see all on their own. Some of the best food on Disney World property can actually be found at these on-site resorts. They also offer a variety of activities like horseback riding, boating, fishing, amazing pools, campfire activities, movies under the stars, and I could go on and on. There's a lot of fun to be had at the Disney World resorts. One of my favorite activities in Disney World is actually resort hopping. I love visiting the different resorts, checking out the decor, and enjoying some great eats and drinks. When you stay off-site at Disneyland, which most guests do, it doesn't mean you're necessarily that far away from the parks because of how the city is set up and how close everything is. In Disney World, staying off-site means that you are much farther from the parks and you're going to have to utilize either a car or a rideshare service to get in between there and where you're staying. The perks of staying on-site at Disney World are much more beneficial than in Disneyland. The early entry to the parks, the Disney transportation, and never having to leave the Disney bubble all make staying on-site in Disney World almost a necessity. The resorts in Disney World also come in 3 pricing tiers, so there are more affordable options available than those in Disneyland. If you are accustomed to visiting Disneyland, then you don't expect to see fireworks or Fantasmic unless it is the weekend or a peak time. World of Color and California Adventure and the projections on Main Street in Disneyland are the only nighttime shows that run throughout the week. In Disney World, the fireworks happen every single night in Magic Kingdom and in Epcot. Fantasmic also runs every single night in Hollywood Studios. And unlike in Disneyland, where it's standing room only in that very tight area in front of the Rivers of America, Fantasmic has its very own amphitheater in Hollywood Studios with seats. That's right. Not only can you see Fantasmic every single night of the week, but you can do so while sitting down. I love Fantasmic, but I hardly ever saw it in Disneyland because it's kind of a pain to get over there, and then you're stuck in that part of the park with what seems like the whole park. In Hollywood Studios, I never miss Fantasmic, and being able to sit after a long park day just makes the show so much more enjoyable. Lastly, Genie Plus works different in Disney World than in Disneyland. There's the obvious price difference. Genie Plus is usually cheaper in Disney World than in Disneyland, but there are some other differences, including when you can purchase Genie Plus. You can only purchase Genie Plus in Disney World starting at midnight the day you want to use it. There is no pre-purchasing. For Disney World, you can make your first Genie Plus selection at 7 a.m., regardless of park opening time. But in Disneyland, you have to wait until you actually enter the park to make your first Genie Plus selection. Photo Pass is also not included with Genie Plus in Disney World like it is in Disneyland. There are quite a few differences, so if you're a pro at using Genie Plus in Disneyland, make sure you know how to use it in Disney World because it will be slightly different. Disneyland and Disney World are very different from one another. They are completely different sizes, have completely different offerings, and are located in two vastly different states. I grew up a Disneyland girl, and I used to hate that Disney World was so different than Disneyland. It wasn't until I embraced those differences that I ended up falling completely head over heels for Disney World, and the rest is history. If you're a Disneyland person, then don't let the fear of something different sway you from giving Disney World a try. There are definitely things that I think are still better in Disneyland, but overall, different can be a good thing, and Disney World is proof of that. If you're planning to visit Disney World for your first time, don't let the required planning overwhelm you. I have everything you need to expertly plan out your Disney World park days to perfection, all in one easy-to-read guide. And if planning isn't your thing, then make sure you check out my Royal Treatment service. I take 100% of the planning off of your plate so that you can experience Disney World with less stress and more magic. If you're interested in learning more about my service, feel free to set up a free phone consultation with me. I hope you found this video helpful, and if you are a Disneyland person thinking about visiting Disney World for the first time, be prepared for a completely different experience. But be careful, you might end up falling in love with it like I did.